I lived on Maui for a few years, and there was a local rule there that everyone seemed to know, even if we didn't talk about it. If you didn't feel good or you had too much fun the night before, you went to the beach. If you could just get your feet in the sand, your body in the ocean, and some sun on your skin, something magical happened. You felt better. Back then, I never asked why it worked. I was just thankful that it did. Years later, I started to see its connection to grounding, and I wanted to know more. Essentially, can grounding improve health and wellness? Let's get into it. In physics, grounding means reducing an object's net charge by connecting it to the ground through a conductive path, essentially so electrons can move between them. Electrons flow until the electrical imbalance is reduced, and the object settles toward the same electric potential as the ground. A ground is an object that can absorb or supply electrons without its own electrical state shifting in any meaningful way. The Earth is the clearest example of this because of its size. You can add electrons to it or draw electrons from it, and its electric potential stays essentially unchanged. That is why the Earth works as both a stable reference point and a charge reservoir when you ground something to it. Now, what does it mean for an object to be charged? A negatively charged object has more electrons than protons. The protons are locked in the atomic nuclei and do not move. The electrons are the mobile charge carriers. So if an object is negatively charged, the simplest way to reduce that charge is to remove some of the electrons. When you connect that object to ground through a conductor, electrons can leave the object and flow until the imbalance is reduced. A positively charged object is the opposite situation. It has fewer electrons than protons. If you want to neutralize a positively charged object, you do not remove protons, you supply electrons. So grounding can work in both directions. If the object has excess electrons, electrons flow out of it to the ground. If the object has a deficit of electrons, electrons flow into the object from the ground. Either way, the direction is set by the imbalance until the electric potential difference has been reduced. Now, none of this happens unless there is a conducting pathway. Grounding requires that the charged object and the ground be connected by something that allows electrons to move. Conductors allow electrons to move freely across their surface or through the material. Insulators resist that movement. So in practice, grounding is always a story about whether the connection is actually conductive and has low enough resistance to let the electrons move. In its simplest form, grounding is the redistribution of electrons between a charged object and a ground through a conducting pathway until the imbalance is reduced. Okay, now let's translate the same idea to the body. Because when people talk about grounding the body, what they're really saying is that the body is a charged object, the earth is the ground, and the skin contact is the conductive pathway. Your body can build up electrical charge through ordinary life because friction and contact separation constantly move electrons around. Walking across certain floors, fabric rubbing against skin, turning in sheets and blankets, or even sliding out of your car all leaves you carrying a small excess of charge. And that buildup tends to be stronger in dry air because charge leaks less easily away. Charge builds up most when you are insulated from the earth. So rubber soles, carpets, many modern floors, they all act as barriers that prevent electrons from draining. Over hours, your body can sit at a slightly different electrical potential and stay there simply because it has no conductive path to ground to. Another factor people rarely consider is that even when you are not feeling staticky, you are still surrounded by electric fields. Indoors, wiring in the walls, power cords, and running electronics, they all create fields that extend into the room. Because the body conducts, those fields can slightly shift your body's electrical level. So you can carry a small amount of electrical charge on your skin just from being in that environment. So, what does grounding change? Putting your bare feet or hands on the earth directly allows the charge stuck on your body to leak away. In simple terms, your body stops carrying that extra built up charge. Now, the question becomes, if you change the body's electrical state at the surface, how can that change your health? To begin, the body is not made of just water. It is made of charged water. Every tissue is filled with dissolved ions. Every membrane carries charge. Every surface inside you sits in a delicate electrical balance. This shapes how cells communicate, how blood flows, how immune cells activate, and how inflammation turns on and turns off. When you are insulated and carrying extra charge, your body is sitting at a slightly shifted electrical level. It is subtle, but biology is sensitive to subtle things. Ion movement, protein interactions, receptor activation, and cell signaling, they all depend on electrical differences that are already very small to begin with. So grounding removes that extra surface charge and brings the whole system back toward a stable baseline. Essentially, it reduces electrical noise. So you would expect, if you change the electrical background of a system that runs on electrical gradients, that you should see a change. Let's take a closer look and see what happens in the body. Starting with blood. Red blood cells are responsible for carrying oxygen from the lungs to the tissues and transporting carbon dioxide back to the lungs for removal. They also carry a net negative surface charge, which influences how they interact as they move through blood vessels. That charge helps determine whether the cells glide past each other smoothly in tiny vessels or if they stack and stick more easily. When stacking increases, blood flows less efficiently. When cells repel each other, the circulation is smoother. That circulation matters because it is where oxygen delivery, waste removal, and local inflammatory activity is happening. In tissue that is already irritated or stressed, when flow is impaired at that level, inflammation can be amplified. In a pilot study, Chevalier and colleagues reported that grounding produced an increase in red blood cell zeta potential. Zeta potential is a measure of the electrical charge at the cell surface in blood and reflects how strongly red blood cells repel one another. In this case, grounding produced a shift in surface charge in the direction that favors separation. It shows that an overall electrical shift in the body can translate into a measurable change in how your blood behaves. Now let's move one layer deeper. Inflammation at its most basic level is chemistry. It is the body responding to stress or damage by activating immune cells, increasing blood flow, and shifting the local chemical environment. At the center of that shift is redox balance. In inflamed tissue, reactive molecules are generated as part of the response. Some of that activity is protective. Some of it, though, if it runs on too long or too intensely, can amplify damage and prolong recovery. Those reactions are electron-driven. Inflammation rises and resolves through electron transfer chemistry. And because grounding shifts the body's electrical state, redox balance is one of the first places you would expect that shift to show up. The cleanest way to test that idea is under controlled stress. When you create a predictable inflammatory response, you can watch what's happening during recovery. Intense exercise is one of the simplest models. It reliably produces temporary muscle stress, immune signaling, and measurable inflammatory markers. Downhill running and eccentric contractions have both been used to generate controlled tissue strain. In studies using this model, grounding produced differences in recovery after that stress. Researchers reported shifts in inflammatory-related markers and recovery measures compared with those in sham conditions. Because inflammation unfolds through electron transfer chemistry, Even a subtle shift in the body's electrical environment can influence how that chemistry resolves. There is another place we should look: the nervous system. Pain is not only about damaged tissue, it is also shaped by how the nervous system is set. Quality of sleep, stress physiology, and autonomic tone all influence how strongly pain signals are amplified or dampened. A system that stays chronically keyed up tends to amplify inflammatory signals and increase pain sensitivity. A system that settles more easily tends to regulate more smoothly. Autonomic tone and cortisol rhythms are measurable outputs of that state. Cortisol follows a daily pattern that helps coordinate immune activity, inflammation, and recovery. When that rhythm is disrupted, inflammatory tone can remain elevated longer than it should be. In sleep based grounding studies, researchers have reported shifts in cortisol patterns alongside changes in sleep and pain measures. Other studies have reported shifts in measures associated with autonomic activity during grounding sessions. This matters because our nervous system sits upstream of inflammation. Blood flow, immune activation, redox chemistry, and pain perception are all influenced by whether the system is in a uptight or calm state. If grounding supports a more stable nervous system, that influence can ripple through our pathways over time. Overall grounding changes the electrical state. From there, effects unfold in the systems that are already electrically sensitive. In blood, surface charge influences how cells move through the smallest of vessels. In inflamed tissue, redox chemistry determines how it resolves. In the nervous system, sleep quality and autonomic tone shape how strongly inflammation and pain are felt. These ultimately are not separate processes. They interact continuously. Blood flow influences tissue stress. Tissue stress influences inflammatory chemistry. Nervous system state, well, it influences both. Seen through that lens, the reports people usually describe from grounding, such as deeper sleep, smoother recovery, less morning stiffness, a calmer baseline, it all fits into a coherent physiological picture. Grounding does not need to override biology to matter. It only needs to shift the electrical environment of a body that already runs on electrical balance. So when I think back to Maui now, the beach makes sense in a new way. The combination of wet skin, feet in the sand, and being surrounded by salt water allowed any excess charge to drain away. And that kind of shift makes a difference because it allows the body to operate in a more ideal state. A small change at the body surface suddenly can ripple inward through circulation, chemistry, the nervous system, and more. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences with grounding. Before you go, be sure to hit the notification so you do not miss where we are going next. And I just want to say thank you to all of those who are trying to get this channel and the videos out to more people. Your support and kind words, well, it means the world. Until next time, take care.